So, while Donald Trump is gallivanting across England and being protested and doing his best cosplay as somebody that can read from a script and actually have manners and decorum, his staff is crashing out over here in the United States. Kash Patel, or better yet, Crash Patel, is losing it on Capitol Hill when being pressed about, the Epstein files, the thing that he built his career going on podcasts to talk about. Yeah, that thing that he's now hiding, that he said if he were the FBI director, he wouldn't be sitting on, he would release. Yeah, that thing. It's not going away. Not to mention the fact that MAGA seems to be fracturing in real time with, brace yourself, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Steve Bannon, and others going against Donald Trump and MAGA. Folks, it's a big jam-packed show. Buckle up. Let's get into it. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. So, dear friends, damnation, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you all are here. We begin today with some breaking news out of the Fed. In a stunning moment, federal chairman Jerome Powell just admitted that Donald Trump had managed to both increase inflation and slow job growth. I want you to take a listen to Jerome Powell.
Good afternoon. My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. While the unemployment rate remains low, it has edged up. Job gains have slowed and downside risks to employment have risen. At the same time, inflation has risen recently and remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals and in light of the shift in the balance of risks, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by 1/4 percentage point. We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that growth of economic activity has moderated. GDP rose at a pace of around 1.5% in the first half of the year, down from 2.5% last year. The moderation in growth largely reflects a slowdown in consumer spending. In contrast, business investment in equipment and intangibles has picked up from last year's pace. Activity in the housing sector remains weak. In our summary of economic projections, the median participant projects GDP to rise 1.6% this year and 1.8% next year, a touch stronger than projected in June.
So, what has Jerome Powell offered to America and the world, which is that Donald Trump has royally fucked up our economy? Donald Trump was given one of the strongest economy bounce backs post COVID, right, by the Biden administration. That, if you recall, during the Biden administration was on the cover of The Economist and other financial outlets about how America's economy following the COVID shutdowns was in fact the envy of the world. Donald Trump then, in the last 8 months, has eroded all of those gains, and we are working in a fucking deficit, careening our way, not to a recession, dear friends, but to what I believe, and I'm not an economist, will be a depression. But they don't like to use the D word. They just like to use the word recession. But We know where things are going. The job reports keep coming out and they are abysmal, while the unemployment rate skyrocketing. We've talked about particular groups, namely Black women, that have lost 300,000 jobs over the last 7 months. They are the canary in the coal mine for what is happening in the service sector, to what is happening around the country. And so, to further break it down, I bring you this New York Times piece. What to know about the Fed's rate decision. The Federal Reserve lowered interest rates by 0.25 percentage point on Wednesday as officials signaled that 2 more cuts could follow this year in light of rising risks confronting the labor market. The decision to lower borrowing costs for the first time since December shifts interest rates to a range of 4% to 4.25%. The decision was not unanimously supported, the second straight meeting that featured at least one dissent from a member of the Board of Governors. And I just want to note that the lone dissenting voice was Donald Trump's newly appointed Fed governor, who was sworn in 2 hours before the meeting took place today. And he wanted the cut to be 0.5 percentage point, not a quarter. Okay, we continue. The decision to cut marks a turning point for the central bank, whose officials have been locked in an intense debate about the right time to provide some relief to borrowers when its goals of low, stable inflation and healthy labor market are in tension with one another. Inflation picked up over the summer and appears poised to continue accelerating. I wonder why that would be. This year, as a result of Trump's what? Tariffs, which are nothing more than a tax on the American people, taxing all of our much needed goods that we get from other countries. The labor market, while still solid, has started to flash more ominous signs. They go on here. Jobs growth was sharply slowed, with monthly gains averaging just 29,000 over the 3-month period ended in August. In May, the average stood around 130,000 positions. While consumers are still spending and the unemployment rate remains stable at 4.3%, sluggish hiring has raised concerns that the labor market is now much more vulnerable than earlier in the year. In its policy statement, the Fed acknowledged that its view on the labor market had changed, saying that policymakers now judge that the quote downside risks to employment have risen. So here we have it, very clearly stated, and this is why. One, there are a couple of things that have happened as of late that have been overshadowed by the media's attention on Charlie Kirk. And so here is what has happened. Donald Trump has also been trying to push the transparency of corporations releasing their quarterly marks on how they're doing, right? To just releasing twice a year instead of 4 times a year. Because if they're releasing quarter by quarter, then you have a better marker of how the economy is actually doing. And Donald Trump doesn't want that. This is something that has been happening with companies for the last 50 years. And Donald Trump wants to do away with it. Why? Because he is tanking the economy. It is astounding, right? Astounding. And again, these are supposed to be these fiscal Republicans, fiscally responsible, that voted in a man who has bankrupted casinos. And the reason why I continue to believe that he is crashing out our economy is so that he can devalue the dollar and ride the cryptocurrency wave that his family is currently grifting off of, to the tune of $5 billion increase in their holdings since they dropped their bullshit meme coin. So this has nothing to do with caring about the collective. This has everything to do with how the grifters move and what they can take advantage of. So we shift gears from our economy, which is flailing, and you will hear more about that as we move through the end of the year. Speaking of the collective, folks, Trump administration. Ex-officials at the CDC tell senators today on Capitol Hill how Kennedy is risking public health. So Dr. Susan Monarez, the former head of the Center for Disease Control that RFK Jr. recently fired, told the Senate committee on Wednesday that she was fired for, quote, holding the line on scientific integrity, and said the nation's top health official had attacked the agency and undermined public health. Dr. Monarez told the Senate Health Committee that she was dismissed after refusing Kennedy's demands to fire CDC vaccine officials and to preemptively agree to approve vaccine recommendations without seeing the science behind them. Another witness, Dr. Deb Horry, who resigned as the CDC's chief medical officer over Dr. Monarez's dismissal, told the panel she believed Kennedy should resign, citing the deaths of children during a measles outbreak in Texas. We talked about this yesterday. Children, she said, have died under his watch. And let us just understand, they have died unnecessarily. Yesterday, I ran through the fact that the NBC News released a report that they've been working on for the last month. And what they are showing in that report is that kindergartners, right, who receive the MMR, the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccinations in order to go into school, that number has dropped from let's say the 2009-2010 school year. Think about who was president during that time, from 99.4% to fast forward has dropped now to 75%. You just had the fucking Surgeon General in the state Surgeon General in Florida say, we're doing away with all vaccine mandates in our schools, so you don't have to vaccinate your children at all. Folks, 2 children died in West Texas because of a measles outbreak. Measles, as I said yesterday, and as NBC News reported, is one of the most contagious viruses that exist on the planet. And we have vaccines for it. No one has to die unnecessarily because we have the vaccines. But RFK Jr. and his crank science, his QAnon advisory board has decided that you don't even get the option. They want to rob you of your rights and the option to even receive the vaccines that you need in order to keep yourself and your children alive. So I also want to make note that today, the West Coast Health Alliance, California, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii, which have banded together to create their own health mandates and their own health guidance, given the fact that the CDC cannot be trusted because it's no longer filled with researchers, scientists, or doctors. They just released their guidance on vaccinations for MMR, also for, guess what? COVID, which is on the rise right now. Whereas you can only get a COVID vaccination if you are not, again, in one of the blue states, if you are 65 or older, or if you are within a vulnerable population. Whereas today, the West Coast Alliance has ordered and offered guidance that pregnant women, children under 2, those that are in high-risk populations, etc., should all be receiving the vaccine. This kind of confusion and this kind of patchwork coverage is what is going to lead to unnecessary deaths and outbreaks. and it is all going to land at RFK Jr.'s feet. I tell you this. So, some Republicans on the committee, including its chairman, who fucking knew better, the sole doctor on the committee, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, knew better. And he still decided to provide a yes vote to appoint RFK Jr. because he sat there and said, you're not going to do away with vaccine policies. Like, you're going to take the health and well-being of 330 million Americans seriously. And RFK Jr., with both fingers crossed behind his back, said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then totally and completely backtracked. So now Bill Cassidy wants to appear dismayed with the allegations raised by Dr. Monarez and Dr. Oury. Mr. Cassidy, who has challenged Mr. Kennedy on vaccine policy, sought to frame the hearing as a direct response to Trump's desire for radical transparency. They are on some absolute and complete bullshit. And I want you now to listen to a reporter who asked Donald Trump a question, who has just appointed or named our new U.S. Surgeon General. Folks, you can't make this shit up. Because the woman that he's naming never finished her residency and is not a practicing physician. Like, when I tell you that they might as well have appointed the fucking Grim Reaper to head HHS, I think we would do better.
Just announced a new nominee for the U.S. Surgeon General who never finished her residency and is not a practicing physician. So can you explain why you picked her to be America's top doctor?
Because Bobby thought she was fantastic. She's she's a brilliant woman who went through Stanford, and as I understand it, she basically wanted to be an academic as opposed to a surgeon. I think she graduated first in her class at Stanford. And Bobby really thought she was great. I don't know her. I listened to the recommendation of Bobby. I met her yesterday and once before. She's a very outstanding person, a great academic, actually. So I think she'll be great.
A great academic. She never finished her residency. She's not a practicing physician. But now somehow she's going to be offering guidance to 330 million Americans. And oh, by the way, Donald Trump doesn't even know who the fuck she is. He's just going on the recommendation of what? The worm in RFK Jr.'s head? Did he discover this woman when he was high on heroin? Like, where do these people come from? The bowels of the internet. That's where they're coming from. And that is who is now directing us. So while that was happening, on the Senate side of Capitol Hill, like, I swear to God, when I tell you that some days it's like 2 o'clock and I'm putting this show together and I'm saying to myself, Danielle, you can't have a drink. It's 2 o'clock. That's alcoholism. Don't do it. But then you run through these stories and you're like, fuck it. They're going to kill us anyway. So now, Lord Jesus, Crash Patel, which is what I'm calling him for his 2-day performance on Capitol Hill today, where he just crashed the fuck out, is the head of the FBI and knows absolutely nothing. Like, knows nothing. And that was put on display by Representative Kamlager Dove, who asked this question. And I don't know who doesn't know this. Who doesn't know who doesn't know who Dylan Roof is? Who doesn't know the man that in 2015 entered into Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina, was invited into a prayer group with 9 Black parishioners who had their eyes closed in praying to God, and guns them the fuck down? How do you not know that? It was national news.
Roof, who followed white supremacist propaganda, murdered 9 black parishioners in Charleston in 2015. Do you deny this?
I'm sorry. Dylan Ruth? Roof, can you give me some more information?
You're head of the FBI, you probably know this. If you don't know, that's fine. You
can give me a reminder, I've got a lot in front of me.
It was national news.
You can give me a reminder like, bitch, you're the head of the FBI. I don't need to provide you with cliff notes. Like, this should be shit that you know. You've been at this job for 8 months now. You're telling me that they didn't have a briefing book, or maybe it should have been filled with crayon drawings. Maybe that would have helped your lazy eye follow it. I can't, today, they're really testing me. They're really testing me. But Swalwell, Representative Swalwell, oh boy, this is where the crash out came.
You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released anyone's name in the Epstein files that has not been credible.
Director, could it at least be 1,000 times?
We have released every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
you can characterize the numbers however you want it.
Claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times.
It's not. It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
My job is to provide for the safety and security of this country. My job is not to engage in political innuendo so you can go out to the sticks and get your 20-second hit in your fundraising article. And keep going, reclaiming your time, because the people of California are being underserved by your representation.
If the president is not implicated, why not release everything that involves him?
We have released everything, the president and anyone else's side, that is credible and lawfully be able to be released. Your fixation on this matter and baseless accusations that I'm hiding child pedophiles is disgusting. Anyone that says that needs to look at the stats alone and go back to the state of California, who's receiving the biggest surge in FBI resources through my redeployment because the cities of Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco are needed.
Director, remembering your oath to tell the truth, did you ever tell Donald Trump his name is in the files?
I have never spoken to President Trump about the Epstein files.
So, just to recap, Representative Swalwell says, how many times is Donald Trump's name? I'm going to put it up again. How many times is his name mentioned in the Epstein files? Is it 1,000 times? No. Swalwell, 500 times? No. Swalwell again, 100 times? No. Okay. Then what is the number? Oh, I don't know the number. Right? I don't know the number, but I know it's not any of the numbers that you offered. So then what is the number? Swalwell asks. I don't know. And then just deflects. There was another exchange between the two of them. And I swear to God, like the temperament that these representatives are showing is what I cannot do. People have said, Danielle, would you consider running for office? Absolutely fucking not. Because all you have to do is run the tape over all of the shit that I've said. But also, I would not be able to sit there and have this lying piece of shit sit there and lie to me and to the American people. So, it gets better. And by better, I mean actually worse. Dan Goldman, Representative Goldman. Do you know how court orders work? This is what Kash Patel says to Dan Goldman. Dan Goldman says, I was a prosecutor, a real prosecutor for 10 years. I want to understand what the court order prevents you from releasing witness statements that the FBI took. You are hiding the Epstein files. You are a part of the cover-up. Okay. It gets even better than that because Representative Jamie Raskin came correct with all the fucking receipts. Take a listen to Representative Raskin now showing clips of Kash Patel before he became FBI director saying all of the things that the FBI has.
Patel, before you joined the FBI, you railed against it for covering up Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking ring. Let me refresh your memory with this clip.
Has Epstein's list, they're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
So you finished that December 2023 interview with a challenge to the FBI and harsh words for Republicans in Congress for not getting the Epstein files out to the public. You can see this clip.
Boy pants, and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are, you said. You emphasized that the president and the FBI director each had complete authority to release Epstein's client list. You said Epstein's black book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. Look at this clip.
This is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black book?
black book?
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
All right, so you were sworn in as director more than 200 days ago. Now the black book is under your direct control. So why haven't you released the names of Epstein's co-conspirators in the rape and sex trafficking of young women and girls?
When I tell you this is how you bring receipts, that this is how every single person inside of Donald Trump's cabinet and orbit should be met, do not allow for them to lie directly to our faces. No, instead, run back their own words and make them defend and say, oh, I was just talking out of my ass. I didn't know what I was saying. I was just doing it because I was invited on a podcast and I wanted to gain followers. Like, make them do that. Because Kash Patel was telling millions of people on Glenn Beck's show and this show and that show about all that he knew about the Epstein files, all that he knew that the FBI had, which is why he was named as the director of the FBI. So now you're there, and now you don't know anything about a black book. Donald Trump's name doesn't appear anywhere. And oh, yesterday's clip was him saying that Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking girls to himself. So I guess the $1.5 billion that was in Chase Bank, right? That they released that after his death. I guess that was what he was running the money to himself. Folks, it doesn't make sense. Not only does it not make sense, their rabid base, which has been radicalized because of their conspiracy theories and lies, are not believing their bullshit anymore. And now, when Kash Patel is now the head of the FBI, they are considering him what Kash Patel had railed against before he got the job, the quote unquote deep state. Now, guess who's the deep state now? Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, and the rest of them. The fact is that which time were you lying? Because I'm running out. I'm running out of tracks to follow. Were you lying when you were going on the podcast and said that you knew exactly what it was that the FBI had, and you only did that because you're a clout chasing piece of shit? Or are you lying now that you are the FBI director, and now because you realize that the person that you've been carrying water for is all over the Epstein files and you can't release them because you can't redact enough because there is not enough black ink to take Donald Trump's name out of the Epstein files? Which one is it? Folks, I just, today I appreciate it. I appreciate the receipts. I appreciate the fire that the Democrats are bringing on the Hill. I mean, I would have been grateful if they had started doing that, I don't know, before Donald Trump became president. And I would have appreciated it if they had started to do it, on January 21st. But I guess better late than never. So, speaking of the fracture, what is happening inside of MAGA right now is actually quite wild. Because again, following their weaponization of Charlie Kirk's death, you had JD Vance, slide right into the man's hosting chair. He hasn't even been buried yet, and you're already trying to co-opt his audience and then parade in all of your Trump officials to pivot the conversation that Charlie Kirk was actually having, which was about the Epstein files and about Israel and Gaza, and pivot off that to get now his audience to go along with the get along. On top of which, you are listening to all of these Trump officials say that they are going to go after, right, the First Amendment. They're going to go after hate speech. And you have to understand this, that hate speech is their bread and butter, right? It is the bread and butter of all of these podcasters, all of these radio folks. And so now, I don't know, someone look outside and tell me if hell has frozen over, because none other than Tucker Carlson was on air today calling out the Trump administration. And folks, I almost fell off of my chair because I said, I'm sorry, what? Again, before he was fired from Fox, what was he doing? How was he making his money? Carrying the water for Donald Trump.
That you hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be. Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul. A human being with a soul, a free man, has a right to say what he believes, not to hurt other people, but to express his views.
I mean, what? On top of which, it gets better. And by better, I mean, I don't know what type of upside down hell we are living in, but do you know who is bringing the receipts on her show where the first episode that she did had 300,000 views and now has had 2 million? Candace Owens. Candace Owens is calling out Donald Trump and the entire conspiracy that she says is being built around creating a narrative around Charlie Kirk's death. Folks, I cannot make this stuff up. It is insane, but it is happening. Take a listen.
The audio of what Charlie Kirk, because I was in communication with Charlie at this time, because I knew exactly which donors were pressuring him and why, exactly which people, that they were insisting Charlie allowed to speak at his event and why, when Charlie did not necessarily want those people to speak at his events. Okay. I'm calling upon Turning Point to release the footage of what Charlie said to Tucker Carlson before he hit the stage, before, all of that craziness and the response to Tucker Carlson's remarks played out. Charlie was mic'd. Surely Tucker Carlson was mic'd. I know Charlie's mic'd the entire time at those events. So I'm asking for everyone to just release Charlie in his own words. I feel like that's pretty fair, right? Let's stop saying how Charlie felt. And instead, if you're going to hold up the letter, release it in its entirety. Okay. Why don't you release your messages, Bill? I'll release mine. Let's all just be very forthcoming about what took place. In fact, I'm calling upon Tucker Carlson to speak about that. I know what Charlie said to him, and I'm sure Tucker Carlson won't lie about it. What did Charlie say to you? Dave Smith, what did Charlie say to you? What was Charlie? Did he seem like he was treading in the direction? Like, do we feel like what Bibi is saying is honest, a representation of what Charlie was going through? This is what I want. I think that the thing that we need here, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Now, does all of this mean that Bibi Netanyahu and that this somehow proves that Israel was involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk? No, we have no evidence of that. We can't say that because there is no evidence of that. But I don't like little lies. That's what I will say. Something that I always say in my household is when there is one lie, there's 20. there's no reason to lie. Bibi could have gone on Fox News and he could have told the truth. He could have said truthfully that Charlie Kirk has always loved Israel. He has always loved Israel as the Holy Land. He's been here many times. And throughout his career, he has been a faithful supporter of Israel. That's not what he said. Okay. He talks about the phone call and didn't give it the proper context. He held up the letter and didn't give it the proper context. And lies by severe omission, I'd like to be very clear, are lies.
Folks, like, again, what kind of upside down Dante's Inferno are we all in? You know, there's somebody who had said on social media, and they were like, you know, it's starting to feel like maybe we all died in 2020 and we're all just in hell, because that's what this feels like. But this fracturing that is happening, because she is not the only one. It is Steve Bannon. It is Alex Jones. It is her. It is all of Tucker Carlson. It is these people, all with their own MAGA fiefdoms, with millions of followers, that are calling bullshit on, one, Epstein, two, the weaponization of Charlie Kirk's death. And it is wild. And for just a quick breakdown, I want to bring you this video that I thought was, very informative.
Candace Owens claimed yesterday on her show, September 15th, 2025, that text messages from Seth Dillon and Bill Ackman revealed their efforts to pressure Charlie Kirk at a Hamptons retreat in August 2025 over his views on Israel. She alleges that Dillon called Kirk's stance anti-Semitic and Ackman confronted him, with Netanyahu offering funding that Kirk rejected, leading Kirk to feel effectively blackmailed. That means that Owens, implying access to these texts as receipts but not fully releasing them, holds critical evidence that could shed light on Kirk's assassination motive. With Candace's allegations partially corroborated by anonymous sources confirming threats and coercion, and relevance established under federal rules, the FBI theoretically should now subpoena Candace Owens to provide these texts. However, given the FBI's history of politicization, can they even be trusted to handle such explosive evidence with integrity? I hope Candace has hidden backups of those texts. What do you guys think?
All I'm saying is she keeps saying, I have the text. I have the information. She has also said that she's very well aware of the fact that saying these things publicly could put her own life at risk. Folks, pay attention to what is happening and what is being said inside of MAGA, because Donald Trump, who was once the umbrella for and the holder of all of these groups, all of these factions, have now fractured. And it's like that Spider-Man meme that they're all just pointing at each other. This is a group that was formed out of conspiracy, that was formed out of lies. And now they're coming for each other. And I said this earlier today with Waj, and that video will be up in a bit. We did our midweek democracy-ish check-in, and we were talking about this and saying that we're not at all trying to minimize, right, the absolute threat and danger that this country is under because of Donald Trump and this regime. That is clear, and that is still happening and escalating. And why is it escalating? I believe that their threats against the left are escalating, and the actions that they're going to take are escalating because it is the one issue that they believe that they can reunite this fractured base around. But I think, in fact, that the horse has left the stable on this shit, and that they're not going to be able to pull these people back. So I close out today with two clips of Obama today that I think that are important, because again, leadership matters. And Obama is offering in these two clips, in this interview that he was doing, exactly the type of leadership and de-escalation and conversation that you should expect from a president. And so I want to play this first one. We'll discuss, and then we'll go into the second one.
Look, obviously I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I was generally aware of some of his ideas. I think those ideas were wrong. But that doesn't negate the fact that what happened was a tragedy and that I mourn for him and his family. He's a young man with 2 small children and a wife who obviously, and a huge number of friends and supporters who cared about him. And so we have to extend grace to people during their period of mourning and shock. We can also, at the same time, say that I disagree with the idea that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake. That's not me politicizing the issue. It's making an observation about who are we as a country. I can say that I disagree with the suggestion that my wife or Justice Jackson does not have adequate brain processing power. I can say that I disagree that Martin Luther King was awful. I can disagree with some of the broader suggestions of that liberals and Democrats are promoting a conspiracy to displace whites and replace them by ushering in illegal immigrants. Those are all topics that we have to be able to discuss honestly and forthrightly, while we still insist that in that process of debate, we respect other people's right to say things that we profoundly disagree with. That's how we should approach this. Now, the last.
So that's his first remarks, which are absolutely right. You do not need to make Charlie Kirk in his death to be some type of martyr by erasing all of the things that he has said. You can both condemn violence while also saying, let us not pretend that he was some purveyor of peace, and even that his debates were in good faith. And there was a preacher, and forgive me because I forget his name, but he's going viral on social media. And he said, how you die does not change how you lived. And we should be able to hold both of those truths. And then I'll leave you with this from Obama as well. I believe that these are his other remarks. Forgive me.
So when I hear not just our current president, but his aides, who have a history of calling political opponents vermin, enemies who need to be targeted. That speaks to a broader problem that we have right now. And something that we're going to have to grapple with, all of us, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, independents. We have to recognize that on both sides, undoubtedly there are people who are extremists and who say things that are contrary to what I believe are America's core values. But I will say that those extreme views were not in my White House. I wasn't embracing them. I wasn't empowering them. I wasn't putting the weight of the United States government behind extremist views. And that is when we have the weight of the United States government behind extremist views, we've got a problem. And so your original question is, are we at an inflection point? We're at an inflection point in the sense that we always have to fight for our democracy. And we have to fight for those values that have made this country the envy of the world. And I often say democracy is not self-executing. It depends on us as citizens, regardless of our political affiliations, to stand up for certain core values, because otherwise we may not have them.
The only thing that I will say that I disagree with Barack Obama on in that statement is that there are extremists on both sides. I refuse to play the both sides game. There's a reason why Donald Trump's White House took down a report that stated that violent right-wing extremism was the major threat to the United States. They took that down yesterday. There have been reports that have been done by both progressive think tanks and right-wing think tanks that have come to the same conclusion, that right-wing extremism is our biggest threat. And so to couch that as saying there's extremeness on both sides, no, only one solves their debate, if you want to call it that, with a bullet. And we need to be honest about that. Because if you're not honest about the problem, you can't come up with the solutions. And that's why we find ourselves here. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. As always, I appreciate every single one of you, and I want to shout out the super stickers and super thanks. Every single dollar goes to allowing me to create the kind of content that you all deserve. Electron, thank you. Diana, Jules, as always, Karen, Aaron, Karen again, Travis, DC, AR, MCC, and Karen again. Thank you so very much for your generous contributions. I appreciate each and every single one of you. As always, dear friends, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will be back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, and I will see you all then. Be well.